For the agenda today, we are going to take a look and just have an overview of Student Financial Affairs Office and what we do. We're going to look at different financial aid programs that are available to students, cost of attendance. We'll take a look at the financial aid process, give some financial aid tips that would be very useful for students and families. And then we'll have some time at the end for some questions. So at Student Financial Affairs, we offer services such as financial aid advising to assist students with applying for financial aid and determining what they're eligible for. Our office awards and administers financial aid to students, and we do outreach services such as this one to reach our student population as well as the Gainesville community. Our main campus is located in Kreiser Hall, and we service a majority of the undergraduate students as well as most of the graduate students. We also have satellite offices throughout our campus that services our law students, medical students, and some of the specific professional students as well. So before we go into some of our main topics, we thought it would be kind of nice to test your financial aid knowledge, just to see if you guys know any trivial stuff or anything like that. So in a couple of seconds, you're going to see a poll show up on your page. It should show up on now. The question is going to be posted on there. Go ahead and give it your best answer, and we'll take a look at what the answer is. So the question is, in 2018, approximately how much did UF disperse in financial aid? Go ahead, I'll give it a couple of seconds for you guys to answer. Give it a few more seconds. Go ahead in the poll. Okay, so it looks like most of you guys said $664 million. Let's take a look at what the answer is. And you guys would be correct. So as of 2018, UF has dispersed over $664 million in financial aid to students. So it looks like most of you guys answered that correctly. So we're gonna do another poll just to test your knowledge. What percentage of students are awarded financial aid? Go ahead and take your best guess. We'll give it a few more seconds. I'll go ahead and end the poll there. So the majority of you guys said 85% of students are awarded financial aid. Let's take a look at the answer. And you guys would also be correct. So we have a lot of smart Gators in our webinar today. That's really good. So we mentioned before that about over $664 million have been dispersed to students. A part of that disbursement does include student loans. We try our best here at SFA to educate our students when it comes to smart borrowing and understanding what it means when taking out student loans. Of our graduates, about 64% of UF graduates leave out of UF with no student loan debt. And out of the students that do take out student loans, the average indebtedness is about $21,713, which is almost about $7,000 less than the national average. So again, we do try our best to educate our students to borrow smart so that they're not stuck with a lot of student loans debt after they graduate. So we're going to try two more questions just to test your knowledge, and then we're going to go into our main topic. So the next poll should be showing up in 1 second. And this one's regarding Bright Futures. So what percentage of in-state freshmen receive Bright Futures? Is it 46%, 93%, 62%, or 24%? We'll go ahead and end our poll and see what you guys said. So the majority of you guys said 62%. And then right after that, some of you guys said 93%. The answer is 93%. So we get a lot of Gators, a lot of students that come in who are eligible for Bright Futures. It's one of the most common scholarships that we see here at UF. And this is going to be the last poll, and then we'll go ahead and get started with our main topics. So the question is, what is UF's current freshman retention rate? Is it 64%, 84%, 96%, or 75%? I'll go ahead and end it there. So the results are in. It looks like most of you guys said 96% is the UF freshman retention rate. So let's take a look at the answer. And you guys would be correct. So 96% of our freshmen do remain enrolled at UF for the remainder of their academic progress. So thank you guys for participating in that. Hopefully you guys learned a little bit something about financial aid. We'll go ahead and get started with our first main topic, and that is financial aid programs. So financial aid can start off, can fall under 4 different categories. You have grants, scholarships, work study, student loans. And they can come from a variety of funding sources such as federal, state, institutional, or private. They can have different eligibility criteria. Some can be need-based, some can be merit-based. And then the renewal criteria for each of those aid can vary as well. The first 2 categories, grants and scholarship, they're what we called gift aid. And gift aid is essentially free money, money that you don't have to pay back, and obviously the more desirable type of financial aid. The second 2 categories are what we consider self-help aid. Now self-help aid is considered money awarded to students that either requires them to pay it back, which is the case for student loans, or it requires them to do something in return. So in the case of work study, in order to earn those funds, student would have to work a certain amount of hours in order to earn wages. So we'll take a look at each of these a little bit more in detail. We'll start off with the grants. General requirements for grants are students have to be undergraduate students. They have to complete a FAFSA application, and we'll talk more about that later in the presentation. A lot of grants are need-based, so students do have to demonstrate financial need, and that is determined by the FAFSA application. For the most part, students have to be enrolled at least half time. So for undergraduate students, that's at least 6 credits or more to be eligible for some grants. And then we cannot award grants over the cost of attendance. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on, but it cannot exceed the student's cost of attendance. Some examples of grants include the federal Pell Grant. This is a federal funded grant. You have the supplemental or the Florida Student Assistant Grant. Both of these are state funded grant. And then you have the Douglas Turner Grant, which is an institutional grant that UF provides to students. Again, for the most part, grants are need-based, so we do use the FAFSA application to determine whether students are eligible for these types of aid programs. It's not a comprehensive list. There's more information on our financial aid website, but these are some of the common examples that we have here. The next type of aid are scholarships. So scholarships are usually more merit-based. They don't usually require a FAFSA application. Students submit a separate application depending on the donors or whoever is funding the scholarship. One of the most common scholarships that we see here, and we talked about earlier before in the polls, is Bright Futures. So we wanted to spend a little bit more time on Bright Futures and how that is applied. So generally for Bright Futures, it's awarded mainly to undergraduate students. It's not very available for graduate or professional students. However, there are some graduate professional students who may qualify for 1 semester of funding if they meet certain criteria. More information on that can be found on our website. If an undergraduate student is considering going to grad school and want to know if they're eligible for Bright Futures, they're more than welcome to contact our office on that as well. Bright Futures is a merit-based scholarship. It does require students to be Florida residents. And students apply for financial aid their senior year of high school. So that's when the initial eligibility is determined. If you did not apply, or if you were not eligible at the time you were a high school senior, unfortunately, you can't go back as a sophomore or a junior to see if you can apply for Bright Futures. That eligibility is determined initially at the high school level. There are two different tiers of Bright Futures that can be used in our office or at UF. The first one is the academic level, and then the second one is the Florida medallion level. The academic level is what a lot of students call the top tier. It is 100% of the tuition rate. And the medallion level pays 75% of the tuition rate. Now, our office does not determine the tuition rate. That's determined with the University Bursar's office. So it can change. It may vary from year to year, but more of that or updates on that can be found at the University Bursar's office, or if you had questions about that, you can be referred to them as well. But currently, the UF tuition rate is $212.71 per credit hour. So if your student is receiving the academic level, 100% of that would be $212 per credit hour enrolled. So if a student is enrolled in 12 credits, their Bright Futures scholarship for that semester would be 212 times the 12 credits that they're enrolled in. For the medallion level, it's 75%. So that's right now about $159 per credit hour. And it's the same concept. If they're enrolled in 12 credits, 159 times 12. If it's 15 credits, 159 times 15. That's the best way to determine how much your Bright Future scholarship will be for that particular semester. For Bright Futures, you are required to be enrolled at least 6 credits. That's the minimum enrollment requirement. And in order to receive it every single year, you have to meet your GPA requirement as well as the credit hour requirement. For the academic level, that's a 3.0, and for the medallion, it's a 2.75. If you're enrolled in full-time for 2 semesters, so fall and spring semester, you are required to earn 24 credit hours by the end of the academic year. However, if you're enrolled in 6 credits one semester, or maybe you're enrolled in 9 credits or 10 credits in another semester, which is not considered full-time, the amount of hours that you're required to earn at the end of the year would be prorated. So the best way to determine that, we do have a Bright Futures predictor renewal calculator on our website. So if you're not sure if you have to earn 24 credits or 21 credits, definitely check that out to see how many credits you're required to earn by the end of the academic year. And you're always welcome to contact our office as well. Another things that students, they ask questions about is how their Bright Futures get affected when they're dropping or withdrawing from a course. So if you're enrolled in 12 credits or 10 credits a semester and you were paid with Bright Futures and you decide to drop a course, you will be required to pay back for that course. And that charge will show up on the student's account so that they can pay it back. So for instance, if a student was enrolled full-time for fall, full-time for the spring, and initially were expected to earn 24 credits by the end of the year, but they dropped the course, that credit is no longer counted as a requirement to earn for the end of the year. So a lot of students, sometimes they get confused with that. And again, we are here to assist them with that. And the Bright Futures renewal calculator is a great resource for students to see what do I have to earn in order to renew my application or renew my Bright Futures for the following year. So we'll go into the next type of federal program, and that is federal work study. So this is one of those self-help aid that we talked about earlier. Federal work study is a federally funded program that gives students an opportunity to look for jobs on campus and apply for employment so that they can earn wages to help with college expenses. Federal work study is a need-based program, so it does require a FAFSA and it does require students to demonstrate financial need. And when they are awarded, it'll be a part of their award package if they are eligible for the work study. From there, students can go on our jobs website and they can look through the different positions that are available that have work study as a requirement. They can apply, and if they get hired, they'll pretty much work as a normal job. So they can earn wages, they can use those money to pay for expenses, or they can save that money. It's completely up to them. With the federal work study, because it is a need-based aid, there are some students who are going to qualify, and there may be students who don't qualify. If you do not qualify for a federal work study, students still have the option of applying for OPS position. These are also on-campus jobs that students can look on that same jobs.ufl website. They can see student assistant jobs that don't require federal work study, and it'll pretty much be the same process. If they get hired, they can earn wages, and they can use those wages to pay for expenses, books, whatever that the student needs. The last type of financial aid program are student loans. So with student loans, they are required to be paid back. And depending on the type of loans that you take out, students will accumulate interest over the period that the loan has not been repaid. So in order to be considered for student loans, students have to submit a FAFSA application. So again, with the FAFSA application, they have to be enrolled at least 6 hours every semester that they want to receive any federal loans. Once we receive their FAFSA application and we determine that they're eligible for subsidized or unsubsidized loan, those options will appear on the student's One.UF financial aid package. And from there, the student will have the option to accept, reduce, or decline the loan. There are 3 different types of federal loan options for student. You have the subsidized, unsubsidized, and the plus loan. The subsidized loan is a need-based loan. When students take these out, the subsidized loan does not accumulate any interest while the student is enrolled in school. So this is what we kind of encourage students, if they have this option and if they have to take out a loan and they have subsidized or unsubsidized, it's better to take the subsidized loan first before taking unsubsidized and plus loan, because the interest won't be accumulating while the student is enrolled. The interest will begin after the student either graduates or if they withdraw less than half time, or if they withdraw completely from school. The unsubsidized loan, which is another student loan, this is a non-need-based loan. So for the most part, if you submit a FAFSA application and meet the general requirements, almost any student would be eligible for this type of loan. With the unsubsidized loan, however, once it's dispersed, once it's been released to the student, the interest will start accumulating right away. So this is the less favorable type of loan, because while the student is enrolled, that interest will be accumulating. So it's going to be more money in the long run that they'll be paying back. So with the subsidized loan, again, it's a need-based loan. So depending on your FAFSA, some students may qualify, some may not. It may just be the unsubsidized loan that you qualify for. But either way, we are here to help you if you have any questions about that, or if you need more information about that. The third type of loan is the plus loan. So for undergraduate students, the plus loan would be more of a parent plus loan. This is something that the parents or the legal guardian would apply for. With the parent loan, the parent would submit a supplemental application on the studentaid.gov website. It is based on credit, so sometimes you can be denied for the loan or you can be approved for the loan. And whatever that the student does not have covered in their cost of attendance, that can be filled in with the Parent Plus loan. So it can be, you can request an amount up to your cost of attendance, or you do have the option to request a specific amount in the Plus loan. With any of these loans, you are not required to start making payments right away. After the student graduates, or if they fall below half-time, they do have a 6-month grace period, and they'll start receiving, information from the Department of Education of their repayment options and, what are the next steps into paying back the loan. So we'll go ahead, and I think this will be a good place to do like a really quick pop quiz just to see if you guys are paying attention. So in a second, another poll will show up on your screen. And the question is, which of the following financial aid programs do not require a FAFSA application? Is it subsidized loans, Pell Grant, Bright Futures, or unsubsidized loans? We'll give it a couple of seconds. So this is an aid program that does not require a FAFSA application. Okay, so let's see what the results are. So it looks like most of you guys said unsubsidized loan, and then Bright Futures came in second after that. So the answer to that is Bright Futures. So out of those 4 different aid programs, Bright Futures does not require a FAFSA application. Subsidized, Pell, unsubsidized, those are federal base aid, and they do require that you submit a FAFSA application. Bright Futures does not. So if you're not interested in taking out subsidized or Pell Grant or anything like that, you don't have to submit a FAFSA application. But if you do want to be considered for those types of aid, it's good to do that. So let's do one more and then we'll move on to our next topic. This one's going to be a true or false question. So true or false? Interest on subsidized loans begin accumulating immediately after disbursement. So this is the subsidized loan. So remember, we had sub and unsubsidized. One of them accumulates interest and one of them does not. So which one? And we'll give it a couple more seconds. All right, so let's see what the results are. All right, so majority of you guys said false, and you are correct. So subsidized loan, that's the loan that does not accumulate interest once it's dispersed. This is the one that it's interest-free until the student graduates or if they withdraw from classes. The unsubsidized loan, once it's dispersed, that's when the interest is accumulating. It accumulates immediately. So all throughout their undergraduate or graduate career, that interest will be building. So that was a good little pop quiz. We're gonna go ahead and get into our next topic, and that is cost of attendance. So with cost of attendance, the items that we have here, they reflect estimated expenses for the academic year. So right now we have fall and spring together. So this is one whole academic year. If you want to look at estimated costs for summer or for graduate students, we have a lot more detailed information on our financial aid website. You're going to hear me reference that a lot because there's so much great information, so many resources that you guys can find there as well. And we'll try to cover as much as we can on this presentation. But with the cost of attendance, if a student is taking the average 15 credits for fall and 15 credits for the spring semester, we determined that this is the average cost that they would be spending between the 2 semesters. So it has tuition, books, computer, housing, and some personal expenditures. Obviously, this is not a one blanket cost for every single person, and it's not the exact bill for everyone. Everyone, it can vary. This is just a good way for you guys to kind of budget your fund and kind of like plan out how much you think you'll need in order to cover these expenses for the academic year. And for our office purposes, it also allows us to see what budget the student has so that we don't over award in federal financial aid. So when I talked about that earlier, different types of aid like loans or work study, they prevent us from being able to award you over this cost of attendance. So for us, it kind of helps manage how much we award to students. And then for you guys, it's a great way to manage your finances and get a good idea of how much it's going to cost for the year. So this is for the in-state student. This is the average cost for in-state students. For our out-of-state students, everything from books down to personal is pretty much the same. For tuition, you're going to add another $22,000 on there. And that'll bring your total to about $43,000 for the academic year. As I mentioned before, this is going to vary for different students. So a lot of times we have students ask, well, how much am I going to owe with my financial aid? You can start off by looking at this cost of attendance and kind of list out what is going to be applied to you. So obviously tuition is going to be one thing that you can write down. You can include books in your budget. Maybe you already have a computer or a cell phone, so that expense might not be applied to you. Maybe you don't need transportation or you don't plan on having a car. You don't have to include that in your cost of attendance. So once you have your estimated costs, you can take a look at your financial aid package and see how much you have available to you to pay out those costs. If you have more than enough, then you are good for the academic year. If you don't have enough, then maybe you have to consider what other funding sources that you have to help cover these costs, or maybe if you have to pay out of pocket. Either way, again, we are here to help you with that, but that's just one good way of kind of seeing like what your estimated cost will be for the year. One note that I wanted to add on there, for Innovation Academy students, so Innovation Academy are students whose terms are spring and summer, so they don't have the traditional fall and spring. The cost of attendance is posted on our website as well, but for my incoming IA students, if you're starting in the spring of 2021, although you have the option of taking classes in fall of 2020, you are not considered a degree-seeking student that first fall semester. And as a result of that, you will not be eligible to receive, some of those grants or loans or possibly those scholarships for that first fall semester before you officially start. So that's something that I really want to stress and make sure that you keep in mind. So again, IA students, if you're starting spring of 2021, if that's your official start date, you're not eligible for aid for your first fall semester, for that first fall semester before you matriculate. If you plan on taking classes your following fall, so after you officially become a student and you want to take classes the fall after that or any fall semester after that, then you would be eligible. But for that fall semester before you start your official spring courses, you're not eligible for federal aid. So be sure to keep that in mind. Okay, so now we're going to go over the financial aid process, and we're going to quickly look over how to apply, receiving your financial aid, and using that financial aid once you receive it. So the first thing we're going to look at is applying for financial aid. So you've probably heard this from us many times, I hope, about the FAFSA application. And the FAFSA application is the free application for federal student aid. A lot of our federal programs like Pell, student loans, work study, they require a FAFSA application to be completed. The FAFSA application is available on October 1st every single year. So it's not automatically renewed like Bright Futures or any other scholarship that you might be receiving. With FAFSA, you have to apply and submit an application every single year. So really quick, some instructions on that. You would apply for FAFSA on the studentaid.gov website. You'll create an FSA ID. You can apply online or through an app. Make sure UF is listed on there. Make sure it's signed. Double check it to make sure there are no errors on there. And then you'll go ahead and submit that. Once our office receives your application, we'll take a look at it, review it, and we'll notify you of what type of financial aid you are eligible for. And that'll be posted on your One.UF page. A lot of times we get questions about what tax information you're supposed to use on a FAFSA. So FAFSA does require that you submit some tax information. Depending on the academic year that you plan on attending or that you want to be considered for aid, you'd be using your tax information from 2 years prior. So for instance, for the current for the upcoming 2020-2020 school year, so the one that's coming up right now, hopefully most of you guys have done your FAFSA already, but that FAFSA application uses a tax return from 2 years prior. So that's the 2018 tax return. Next year, for the 21-2022 school year, the application is going to open up this October 1st. So make sure you guys are aware of that. And it's going to use tax information from 2 years prior. 2 years prior of 2021 is going to be the 2019 tax return. So I kind of said a mouthful and a lot of numbers there, but This chart hopefully will be a little bit helpful, but just think about whatever academic year you're applying for, you're using tax returns from 2 years prior. So when submitting with the FAFSA application, at random, some applications are going to be selected for what is called federal verification. And federal verification is just a review of the FAFSA application to make sure that the information submitted is accurate. If a student is selected for federal verification, they will be notified through email, and we will post documentation that the student and the family have to submit in order for us to complete the review. If you are selected for verification, please be sure that you submit those documents as soon as possible. Failure to do so can and will prevent your aid from being dispersed. So if you want your aid to disperse on time so that you can have your money to use as you need, be sure to submit your verification documents as soon as possible. So if you want to know if you're selected or not, make sure you're checking your One.UF, check your to-do list, because that's where we're going to post that information. So with the FAFSA application, because there's certain rules and regulation, and it uses tax return from 2 years prior, we do understand that a lot can happen between 2 years. A lot of things can change. There can be some extenuating circumstances that students or families may face. So there are a couple different petitions or different things that you can consider if you fall under those categories. So I'm going to go over a couple of those. The first one is the financial aid revision petition. So families who may have experienced a loss of income, maybe there were a divorce in the family or unusual medical expenses, you may want to consider submitting a financial aid revision petition. We got a lot of questions about COVID related issues such as like loss of income due to COVID or due to the pandemic. So this financial aid revision petition is a good way for you guys to submit and kind of like tell us what your specific situation is. The application can be found on our website, and it lists out different reasons that you can petition for, as well as some supporting documents that you can provide us so that we can take a look at your situation and reevaluate your FAFSA application. I do want to emphasize that when submitting a revision petition, it's not guaranteed that you are going to be awarded additional funds. This is kind of just a way to kind of see what your most current financial situation is that's not reflected on your tax return that was provided on the FAFSA. So it's not always going to guarantee additional aid, but we will reevaluate your application to see what you can possibly be eligible for, or if there are additional options on that. The next type of petition is the dependency override petition. So on the FAFSA application, there are certain regulations that makes a student dependent versus dependent. For the most part, undergraduate students are going to be considered dependent students and therefore are required to submit parent income information on the FAFSA application. Of course, there are some situations where maybe the parent might not be in the picture, so it may be really difficult for the students to submit that information. More detailed information can be found on the specific dependency override form, but if you feel like as a student that you should qualify for a dependency override, you can definitely contact our office and we can talk to you about that. And you can also look at the form to see what criteria are considered or can be considered in order to be an independent student. For the most part, students are considered independent automatically if they are 24, if they're married, if they have children or dependents of their own, or if they're graduate students. Those are what makes a student independent for financial aid purposes. So obviously a lot of undergraduate students don't fall under that category. But if there are extenuating or special circumstances, the dependency override petition would be the solution for the student so that we can review if they can be considered independent student. The last thing in the applying for financial aid, there are some students who may be considered unaccompanied youth. And that is defined as youth who may be homeless or at risk of being homeless. So if a student feels like that they fit that category, the procedure to do that is to go ahead and submit their FAFSA application, answer those dependency questions as best as they can. Most likely the FAFSA will be rejected, but at that point, student can submit a dependency override appeal as well, so that they're not required to submit parent information. And then again, more information on that, if you want more details on that, can be found on our financial aid website. All right. So other than, federal loans and merit-based scholarship, we get a lot of questions about how can I apply for more scholarships or outside scholarships. Our website has a scholarship search engine where students can look for potential scholarship within different UF departments, as well as some third-party websites or some third-party scholarships as well. You can use that search engine to see scholarship criteria based on what year you are. So if you're a sophomore or a freshman or a junior, there are some that may be need-based, there may be some that are more merit-based. There's ways to kind of like filter out to see what type of scholarship may be available to you as a student. There's also the Department of Labor's Career One-Stop website that you can check out. And then sometimes you guys can look in your local communities, like kind of research to see if there are any scholarships available in your hometown. Check with your parents or your legal guardian's employers to see if they have any scholarship opportunities as well. There are some scholarships out there. It does require you to kind of dig and just kind of research and look it up. But you'll never know what's out there. So it's good to utilize these resources to see if there's any additional scholarships out there. Make sure that you are aware of any scams. Sometimes if they're asking for credit or banking information, you really want to be aware of that. We don't want anyone to submit information and kind of get scammed for that. So just make sure you're careful about reading the criteria and the information that they require. And then the last thing is that if you are awarded any outside scholarship, please make sure that you report them on your One.UF page. So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of need-based aid, if you're receiving need-based scholarships that we cannot exceed your cost of attendance, it's good to report any outside scholarship ahead of time on your One.UF. That way we can make sure that we're not overawarding you in student loans or need-based grants. If it comes to a point where you don't report that and we get that information after we've released your need-based grants or your loans, you can fall into a potential repayment situation. And we don't want that for our students. It's not fun. So if you're receiving any outside scholarship, please report them on your One.UF. All right, another pop quiz. I promise this will be the last one, but I just want to make sure that you guys are paying attention and hopefully learning something. So the next poll, and hopefully this will be an easy one. When does the FAFSA application become available each year? Is it January 1st, March 1st, October 1st, or December 1st? When does the application open each year? All right, I'll go ahead and see the result. So it looks like 100% of those who voted said October 1st. And I am so proud of you guys because that is the correct answer. Yes, so the FAFSA application opens up every year on October 1st. So every year, if you want to be considered for aid, keep a lookout for when that FAFSA application is out there and apply to it as early as possible. Okay, so we're gonna go and take a look at receiving your financial aid. So you've submitted your application, we've notified you of your aid package. How do I receive this money? One of the first things that you want to make sure that you're doing is checking your One.UF page and checking your emails. One.UF is going to be your best friend while you're in undergrad or graduate at UF. This is where we're going to post any holds that you may have on your account. This is where we're going to post any verification documents or other documents that you need to submit. So make sure you're checking that regularly and completing any to-dos, clearing any holds so that there's nothing preventing you from receiving your financial aid. With the disbursement process, disbursement typically happens after the drop back period. So at the beginning of every semester, you have a period where you're finalizing your schedule. After that period is over, we kind of lock in your credit hours, make sure you're meeting the enrollment requirements and eligibility for that. And then we can release your financial aid. So There's two places that you want to look at on your One.UF. You have your campus finances page, which will show your charges for tuition, your housing, if you living in a dorm, your meal plans, parking tickets, everything on your campus finances page. This is the page that shows how much you owe. Then you have your financial aid package, your financial aid package page, which will show all the scholarships, all of the grants, all of the loans that you've accepted, pretty much any money that you have available to you to pay for those charges on your campus finances. So at the end of the drop-add period, when we've released your funds, we are going to apply that to your charges first. So we're going to pay off your tuition or any other charges that are on your account first. If you have extra money left over from your financial aid, that money is going to be refunded to you, to the student. If you do not have enough money of your financial aid to cover all of your charges, you're going to have a balance left over that you are responsible for paying. So just be sure that you're monitoring your account to make sure that everything is paid off so you don't have any issues. If you're receiving a refund, that money will be given to the student either through direct deposit if they have one set up, or it is going to be sent to a check in the mail. It's always best to have a direct deposit on file. This is the quickest way that you can access your refund so that you can go ahead and purchase any other expenses that you may have. If you don't, then the refund will be sent to you as a check in the mail, and sometimes that can have issues for that. So we strongly encourage you to set up a direct deposit if you can. Another thing that we wanted to add is authorization for student permission. So on your One.UF, probably under your to-do, you'll have the option to grant UF permission to pay your charges. So other than tuition, if you have housing or Gator dining charges on your account, if you want us to automatically pay that for you with your financial aid, make sure you grant that permission on your One.UF page. So I wanted to take a minute really quick to talk about Florida prepaid because we get that question a lot. As you saw on the chart before that, Florida prepaid will normally get paid out first. So a lot of our students who are receiving Bright Futures, a lot of them also have Florida prepaid, and they wonder, how do we use that at the same time? So Florida prepaid is always going to be used first. Florida prepaid is administered by our university bursar's office. It's not administered by our office. It's not going to show on the student's financial aid package. That's something that once it's applied to the tuition, you can see that on your account activity. It's not going to show on the aid package. So with the Florida prepaid, you don't have to present your prepaid card or anything like that. Students who are enrolled at UF will automatically have their prepaid plan billed by the University Bursar office, and that's going to be applied to, their tuition portion for however amount it's supposed to cover. After the drop-add period, when we release Bright Futures and any other scholarship that the student have, that money can be applied to whatever's left over. So if there's leftover course fees, or if they have housing or Gator dining, that money can then take care of remaining charges. If there aren't any charges, then that money will go straight to the student. If you want to be, if there's a certain semester where you don't want your prepaid to be billed, make sure you contact the University Bursar's office, and you can opt out if you want to, reserve your prepaid for a later time, or if you just don't want your prepaid to be billed. But that's just some information about prepaid. If you have Florida prepaid, that's always going to go first, and then any Bright Futures and financial aid, that's going to come after the drop-add period. Okay, so academic progress. So for federal aid, if you're receiving federal aid, one of the requirements that students have to meet in order to continue being considered is meeting academic progress. That requires students to maintain a 2.0 GPA. They have to have a credit hour completion of 75% or better. And then they have to complete their degree within 160 credit hours. So they cannot go over 160 credit hours. So the GPA is self-explanatory. Students, you have to maintain a 2.0 GPA to continue be eligible for federal aid. For the credit hour completion, when I say the 75% of all attempted coursework, What we're looking at to determine is we're going to look at all of the attempted courses that you've taken. So any courses that you've taken at UF that you've enrolled in, courses that you've enrolled in and maybe you dropped in the middle of the semester, that's still going to be counted as your attempted coursework. And then we're going to look at how many credits out of all of your attempted did you actually earn, did you actually pass. So when we look at those two ratio, it has to be 75% or more. If you fall under the 75% completion ratio, you will be terminated for academic progress and you won't be eligible for federal aid. For the degree completion, you have to complete your degree within 160 credit hours. This is separate from the excess surcharge hour. We get that confusion a lot. Excess surcharge hours is a completely other thing that students can ask questions about with our registrar's office, but the degree completion that we're talking about is for federal aid purposes. Sometimes students, they may come in with dual enrollment or high school AP credits. They may be taking dual majors or minors, and they kind of go over that 160 credit hour limit. If that's you, if you go over that 160, you will get a notification that you have been terminated for SAP. However, if you're still taking courses that are required for your degree, so even if you go over that 160 and you still need, credits that you need in order to graduate, you can submit an academic progress petition where your academic advisor will kind of inform us that, hey, they still need this amount of credits in order to graduate. These are required. So that's okay. Like if you go over 160, it's not like you're completely done. As long as you're still taking credits that are required for your degree, you'll submit that petition and we'll review it and we can reinstate your financial aid. Same thing with the 75% completion. If you fall under that 75 completion and there were extenuating circumstances that caused you to fail the course or not meet that requirement, you can submit a petition for review, and if it gets approved, we can reinstate your federal aid eligibility. So the last part of the financial aid process is using your financial aid. So you've gotten your aid package, it's been dispersed, your charges are paid off, and now you have this refund. What am I supposed to do with it? So with financial aid, the intended purpose of that is to assist you with educational related expenses. So tuition, books, personal expenses, clothes, transportation. If you receive, your refund into your direct deposit account, we're not going to come after you looking at your expenses and seeing how you spent that money. As young adults, this is your time now to kind of practice some money management, personal finance, and budgeting skills. So when you receive your financial aid money, this is the time where you learn how to budget your money, write out how much you think you'll need for groceries or any other expenses for the semester, and kind of manage your money and kind of budget out your money so that it can last per semester. If you're using it and just kind of using it for whatever you want, going on vacation, shopping sprees, and things like that, again, that's up to you, but this money is intended for educational use, and if you use it up and it kind of runs out, there's a possibility that you might not be able to receive additional funding because we've already given that money to you for educational purposes. So again, once you receive your refund, create a budget, a plan just for the semester, each semester, kind of track your expenses and, just kind of budget your money so that you are using it wisely. You're saving your money, and then, that's a great way so that you're not over borrowing money if you're using student loans as well. So some financial aid tips, and then we'll go into our question portion. The One.UF page, this is the One.UF page where students can log in and view their One.UF account. Make sure you're checking that regularly, as well as your UF email account. A lot of times we get parents or guardians or siblings who want to help their students and contact our office on the student's behalf. Due to FERPA regulations, we cannot speak to any outside person other than the student regarding their financial aid or their package. If you want to be able to contact our office on a student's behalf, the student has to go on their One.UF and give that permission by completing the student authorization form on their One.UF. If you're on that listed authorization form and you call our office, if a parent or the student's sibling call our office, then we can speak to them. But they have to be on that student authorization form. If they're not, we cannot speak to you specifically regarding the student's file. Make sure your address is correct on your My.UF page. Again, be proactive in completing requirements early, completing your FAFSA early, checking your One.UF regularly to clear out any documents or holds. If you plan on dropping courses, with Bright Futures or certain types of aid, sometimes it can have an impact. So always feel free to contact our office if you have any questions. So we have reached the end of our presentation. We're going to go ahead and go to the question portion. Before we go into that, just some quick tips. Again, our financial aid website, which I reference a lot, is the sfa.ufl.edu website. There you'll find a lot of great information, more details about financial aid. You can submit your questions to Allie, which is our virtual staff member, and she can help you out as well. And you can contact our office or submit your questions to our email as well, and we'll get to you as soon as possible. So with that, Angela, were there any common questions that we've gotten that we can answer? Or if you guys have any questions, guys can go ahead and submit that on the chat now.
We've gotten some really, really good questions, but they were a little bit more specific to certain situations. Rather than something that would be probably beneficial to the whole group. I'm just about, so everyone knows, I am just about to upload a PDF of the presentation again. And that should be out in the chat now. And again, we compiled the answers to the questions that we were asked prior to to today's presentation. We created an FAQ page on our website to answer those. So I'm going to post that link in the chat as well, so everyone has access to it. But yeah, we're here ready for questions. If anyone wants to ask them in the chat or ask verbally, we're ready for you.
Okay. I'll just go over some or reiterate some stuff that we talked about before. One of the FAQs that we got regarding student loans, and it was about like, how do we accept it or cancel it, or how do we know if we're eligible for that? So first, if you're considering taking out student loans, you want to make sure that you have a FAFSA on file. If we have that and you're eligible for student loans, that information will show up on the One.UF page. So on the One.UF page, you'll have your financial aid section, and then you'll see whether you have the subsidized or the unsubsidized loan. And then next to that, you'll have the take action button, where you'll be able to accept it, reduce it, or cancel the loan if you want it. Another thing to point out, sometimes students have the plus loan option. We get a lot of questions that say, I don't have the option to accept or decline, or accept or reduce the loan. It's only telling me to decline. Usually that's because with the plus loan, students have to submit parents have to submit a Parent Plus loan application. And then once we receive that, and if they are eligible for it, that loan will automatically show up as accepted on the One.UF page. So if it's only showing as decline, it's because it's not a real loan just yet. You just want to make sure that you submit your application, and you can check our office if you have any questions on that. Anything else? So it looks like we're getting some questions about Florida Prepaid and Bright Futures. So with Florida Prepaid is handled by our bursar's office. So it's not handled by our office. So if you have questions specifically regarding your Florida Prepaid plan, you want to contact our university bursar's office. Again, if the student is enrolled, plan will automatically be billed for the tuition. So it's usually there isn't anything extra that they have to do. It'll happen automatically. But if you had specific questions on how much it covers or things like that, feel free to contact the bursar's office. If you're having issues, someone asked about the take action button for the student loan. If you're not seeing anything, or if you're having issues for the subsidized or unsubsidized loan, definitely call our office and then we can assist you with that and take a look for that as well.
Hi, everyone. Just real quick, I am getting both private chat messages and messages in the public chat. So please, everyone, just hang with me for a moment. I promise I'll answer you, okay? Just didn't want anyone to think I was ignoring.
So someone asked a good question about Bright Futures, taking it in the fall, spring, and summer. So yes, Bright Futures, if you're enrolled at least 6 credits, it can pay out for the fall, it can pay out for the spring semester, and it can pay out for the summer semester. One thing to keep in mind, however, Bright Futures has a program limit, so an overall limit. Students can receive up to 120 credit hours of funding, or if they've reached their 5 years, that's it for the Bright Futures. In addition to that, there's also a limit each academic year. So each academic year, Bright Futures will pay up to 45 credits. So if a student is taking fall, spring, and summer semester, usually they don't hit that 45 credits if they're taking the regular 15 credits, or 6 credits in the summer. But if for whatever reason they're taking like 18 credits in the fall, 18 credits in the spring, 18 credits in the summer, most likely you're going to hit that 45 credit hour limit. So yes, they can receive it every semester as long as they have program hours and years left over. Just be mindful that there is an academic year limit to that as well.
Somebody asked if our office is taking calls right now, and the answer is yes. We have an entire call center staff who is out answering calls right now. I think I can actually hear people talking outside my office. We do accept calls during our regular office hours, which are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The only days we are closed are, of course, Saturdays and Sundays, and also university holidays. But otherwise, if we are open, our phones are open.
Yeah, and guys, if you're looking at your financial aid package and you feel like a scholarship is missing, or something isn't right on your aid package, feel free to contact our office. You can submit your emails. You can submit your questions through Allie, or contact our office, and we'll try to take a look at that for you. So the timeline, someone asked about, the meal plan for the fall semester, and when does it gets paid off. So if a student is receiving financial aid, Bright Futures or federal aid, and they have tuition, housing, meal plan charges on their account, we don't disperse financial aid until after the drop add period. So that's usually a couple of weeks after classes start. However, students who are receiving financial aid, Bright Futures, federal aid, their tuition is automatically deferred to a couple of weeks out into midway through the semester, so that there's time for their aid to disperse. And then the student can also request a deferment with the housing department, and also if they need a deferment for their meal plan, can contact the Gator Dining department on how to do that. So that way they're not, past due on their charges or anything like that, because it does take some time for financial aid to disperse. It's not like a quick thing right at the beginning of the semester. It does take some time. So we do understand that students, we don't want students to miss any past due charges due deadlines or anything like that. So again, just make sure you're checking your One.UF, checking when the deadlines or your charges are due, and then contact the specific departments if you want to, defer some of those charges. They'll have their own criteria for that, but feel free to reach out to them just to make sure what that would be. So after submitting your FAFSA application, I would say it takes a couple of weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, for our office to both receive your FAFSA application, review your eligibility, and then post your award package on your One.UF page. If it's been, maybe several weeks and you don't see anything on your One.UF page, you may want to contact our office just so we can see if we've even received your FAFSA application. Sometimes there may be an issue with your application that you may have to resubmit or to correct the issue before it gets sent to us. All right, I think that looks like that's most of the questions that have been submitted in the chat. Thank you all for joining us today. I know there was a lot of information that I kind of threw at you guys, but hopefully it was helpful. Hopefully you guys took a lot of good notes. Again, this presentation has been recorded, so we'll post that again if you want to go back for references. And I hope you all have a great day, and go Gators.